Black, please.
Well, yes, if you take a look at that page, is it 56,
Okay.
you'll see that there's a motion there, and the committee asked me if I could ask council to endorse that. It recommends that council support the recommendations of the Common Standing Committee of the Environment and Sustainable Development, seeking a federal government role in the preservation of Canada's heritage, and that support be communicated to the federal ministers of the environment and finance. How might I move that forward? Or I did talk to the clerk about this. So
Mr. Roselle, how do we get that to?
My apologies. This is carried over from the last council, so I was all ready for that last
okay,
council.
right,
But
yeah.
I'll just draft it up right now if you want to move on to the other communication
He's
items,
going to
maybe.
draft up a motion that we can consider, so
Yeah.
we'll come back to it when he has it completed.
Oh, okay, yep.
Anything else you want to speak on? We get the motion in a moment. You certainly speak on it.
Well, just to say that the report was contained in these minutes. So if councilors want to read a little bit more about it, that document was in there.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you very much for that. You've heard the motion to receive as information. Any other discussion? Those in favor? That's carried. So we've received the minutes as information. In a moment, we'll deal with that motion from the minutes. I'll go on and then you can catch up. Norfolk Heritage Committee minutes of February the 26th, found on page 65, moved by Councillor Oliver, seconded by Councillor Sonnenberg, that the minutes of the Norfolk Heritage Committee of February the 26th, 2018 be received as information. Anything we need to know about here? Hearing nothing, I will call the question. Those in favor to receive as information, that's carried. Energy conservation is next. Page 71, moved by Councillor Oliver, seconded by Councillor Wells, that the minutes of the Energy Conservation Committee of March the 9th, 2018 be received as information. Page 71, Brunton and Black.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I have two questions on page 69 of the agenda, or the minutes. And the first one is, I've followed the Quants Dam micro hydro project now for some time, and I wonder, what is the actual holdup on that? Can somebody answer that question for me? It's been kicking around now for about 4 years.
You wish to respond? Thank you, Councillor Bach.
Yeah, actually, I was going to speak to that. And at the last meeting, we were quite surprised because they said that they would probably be up building and this year, but again, it's been put off. And I think it says here the ministry approvals. So basically, that's what it is. We don't know the details of the ministry approvals, but it's something to do with the water and the fish and, you know, in the dam there. So they're just waiting for those approvals to come forward. Once they do and they get the go-ahead, they still plan on building it, and they've got the plan to do it. And once those approvals are in place, they'll move forward with it.
Well, Your Worship, I don't really feel that answers the question, and I apologize to Councillor Black, but, well, yeah, but I think it's been ongoing for 3 years now, at least. So, you know, like, the ministry either want to do it or they don't, I would think, but I won't dwell on that. My next one is down there a little further, the Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and Michael indicates at the last there would be eligible for different projects that we have, and I didn't see a list of the projects. I just wondered, or facilities, I guess, that might be eligible for this certification, I guess is the proper word. Do we have a list of those? Or does anybody have a list of those?
Marlene, please.
Thank you, through the mayor, to Councillor Brunton. They're mostly administration buildings on the list, and it is just a recognition of our efforts to conserve energy. And we're actually going to bring this up at our senior leadership team tomorrow for their approval.
So will we see a list of that soon, or,
Yes, you will,
and when might that be?
after it's seen through SLT tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add my 2 cents worth as well to try and respond to Councillor Brunton's very good question about the delays on the micro hydro Archimedes screw project. And Councillor Black mentioned, I think, the M&R approval difficulties that the project has had. I would remind council also there were MOECC approvals, and perhaps I think the most problematic one in the last number of months has been with either with Hydro One or the IESO in terms of getting the electrical system approvals necessary in order to have that project go online or go live or go on the grid. And believe me, everyone in the committee is just as frustrated as council is that this hasn't started yet. And I said, I think a year ago, that was my personal hope it would start before the fall of 2018, because after that, I'm gone. And I'm going to be very, very disappointed if we don't see a shovel in the ground, and it looks like we won't. But it is still going to happen. I can only assure council that they've got, and we know what our consultants, our partners are like. They're very methodical. And it just shows how intimidating it is for the private sector probably to get through these processes.
We do not want to disappoint you. We don't want to disappoint you, sir. Councillor Brunton, continue.
Just one last question on that, maybe, and I know it's been budgeted for some time ago, so are there still sufficient funds in the budget for that? Or will there be some amendment coming forward?
I'll try, and then Marlene probably
Go ahead,
correct me,
Councillor
but
Oliver, and then Marlene.
We
can-
committed our small portion, and I think ours was only like 10% of the cost or less, capital-wise. And yes, it was budgeted for a number of years ago, and I think it's still sitting there, either in a reserve or in our energy reserve. So there shouldn't be anything more.
Marlene, please.
Through the mayor, yes, the money is still in the budget, and it just keeps moving forward in the next year until it's needed.
I'm glad you haven't spent the money. Anything else on energy conservation minutes? Councillor Black.
Also, just to point out, right above the green bug on page 68, the fit microfit, the Waterford Fire Station, we did, council endorsed installing the solar panels on that, and it has been making us money, and actually more than what was anticipated. So in 2017, provided maybe a small amount, but nonetheless, $4,803 in revenue, which actually exceeded the expectations by 6%. So I guess it just goes to prove that it does work, and it is paying, even though a small amount, it is paying something back to Norfolk County taxpayers.
Anything else? You've heard the motion, receive as information. Those in favor? It's carried, thank you. On to page 71, the Delhi Tobacco Museum and Cultural Advisory Committee minutes, and the curator's report is attached, moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Oliver, that the Delhi Tobacco Museum and Cultural Advisory Committee minutes of March the 19th, 2018 be received as information. Anything we should know about here? Those in favor? Carried, thank you. Mr. Baird, I was at the Delhi Museum 2 weeks ago. Looking pretty spiffy in there. I love the airplane hanging down from the ceiling. It's quite dramatic. Thank you. Well done. Health and Social Services Advisory, I'm on page 75, moved by Oliver, seconded by Wells, that the minutes of the Health and Social Services Advisory Committee of January the 18, 2018 be received as information. Any discussion on these minutes? Those in favor? That is carried, thank you. Page 81. Moved by Councillor Geisen, seconded by Councillor Oliver, that the minutes of the Norfolk County Agricultural Advisory Board of March 22nd, 2018 be received as information. Any discussion here? Councillor Mike Columbus, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Geisen's actually attended this particular meeting in my place as the alternate, and this is where the bunkhouses and the single-family dwelling issues come up. See, the board, the Ag Advisory Board did pass motions on both these items, and I know we approved, gave you direction to correspond with the appropriate minister, but do we need this motion here passed by council? The same motion that was passed by the Ag Advisory Board, Mr. Clerk, or are we okay with the way it sits right now?
Go ahead. Go, Mr.
Whoever has
CAO.
the best answer.
Go ahead.
If I may, we've already accepted this onto our action item list. Your senior staff have assembled a team of knowledgeable experts to work on the substantive report, and we're in our initial stages. So while we didn't promise a specific date on bringing the report back, we're not quite clear on exactly, it's a very new undertaking for us, exactly how much time it's going to take. June's realistic, maybe late May, but probably at any rate. Work's already underway, so while I think you're always welcome to pass a motion, we've already taken the instruction and we're working on it.
No, I'm fine with that.
You're okay with that? I want to thank you for making sure this doesn't slip through the cracks. It's pretty important to Norfolk County, this issue. Anything else? Receive as information. Those in favor? It's carried. Let's go back to Norfolk Heritage Committee on page 56 specifically. I have a resolution here that council support the recommendation of the Heritage Committee to support the recommendation of the Commons Standing Committee in regards to a federal role in preserving heritage, Canadian heritage, and that a copy of Norfolk County's support be sent to the federal ministers of the environment and finance, as well as our local MP. It's been moved by Black. I'll need a seconder. This is the motion. Councillor Oliver, moved and duly seconded. Discussion. Those in favor? It's carried. Simply bringing it out of receiving the minutes to putting it into action. Thank you for that. That concludes the reports of committees. I am now going to item 8. In your agenda on page 87, we have 2 notices of motion that are in our package this evening. If you look at page 87, the notice of motion is from Councillor Wells, that corporate support services staff be directed to issue an expression of interest for municipal parking opportunities in downtown Port Dover. This is a notice that it's not debatable, but Mr. Wells, you are putting us on notice that this is coming forward. Do you wish to say anything? I will allow that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, I'll keep my comments for when it really counts.
Thank you, sir. And the second item is also another notice of motion. And you're being handed it at this time. This will be coming forward for Councillor Brunton. If you read through this, I'm not going to read through it all because we will be debating this, I'm sure, 2 weeks hence, but this is basically for council to consider us switching to daytime meetings, and down below, it talks about switching to 9 a.m. meetings for both committee and council. And I believe council as well. Mr. Brunton, I'll let you just speak to this if you will, if you wish.
Well, yeah, Your Worship, I think it's straightforward, and
Okay.
there is a request for a report in there. We'll deal with that next week.
Okay, and it's a request for us to consider changing our regular meeting of both CIC and council to 9 a.m. So we look forward to that discussion in 2 weeks. Thank you. I'm going to item 9, which are motions. As you know, the first item will be dealt with at 4 o'clock as advertised. The second item is a motion from Councillor Wells. This motion is a one-time grant to Canada's Forestry Station Interpretive Center. I am going to page 95. Did you write this up on the second one? I don't see it there. Yeah, Councillor Wells, I'll check this. They don't have it? Well, it's right there. I don't need you to write it up. It's right there. Oh, there it is. I can never catch you, Mr. Clerk. I will try to continue to catch you forgetting something, but you don't. Okay, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to open for discussion. It's been moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Sonnenberg, that council support a one-time grant of $1,000 for Canada's first forestry station interpretive center, and this is to be funded from the 2018 council grants to others budget. Councillor Wells, if you wish to speak first, I'll open it for your discussion.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. We have the money in the budget. We have a council grants committee budget, and I'm asking that we spend some of that money that we have left over and give it to this organization, very needy organization, and does tremendous work on behalf of Norfolk County. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Columbus.
Mr. Mayor, yes, a couple questions. How many dollars do we have left in that council grant budget? And what is the specific donation for to this Canada First Forestry Station? What will they be doing with the money?
Mr. Johnson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Columbus, we have $3,000 left uncommitted for 2018.
3,000. Your second question, I caught some of it. Sorry.
What specifically will the monies be used for by the Canada's First Forestry Station?
Well, I'm trying to recall the deputation we had here about 5 weeks ago. It was for something. You know? Boy, this staff, I'll tell you. Go ahead, Chris Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Wells will recall this as well. Ann Winia was the deputant,
Yes.
and you're right, it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and she was asking that it be used to help offset some of their student wages to run their interpretive center for this summer.
Any other questions? I have one. I can't debate, but I can ask a question in the chair. It says one time. Correct? Any other questions? Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Councillor Wells, I'm not saying they can't apply, but they can apply by October 1st for 2019. Thank you. What I am going to do is suggest, and thank you for that, Councillor, I'm going to suggest that we break. We start at 2:30. I would suggest we break for 13 minutes and be ready to go at 4 o'clock for the notice of reconsideration on a recreation issue. Everybody okay with that? I don't think we need to get into bylaws yet. I think we need a break, and we're probably going to be a while. Thank you. All right, I'll call this meeting back to order, if you will. For those that have just came in, we started our council meeting today at 3 o'clock. We've got through a good slice of business. Just a reminder that if you're carrying one of these, if you could just turn the audio down low or shut it off, that would be appreciated. 4 o'clock, we are to consider a notice of motion from January 30th meeting. So I am starting my agenda, council members, on page 89. Before I get to the reconsideration motion, I want to just explain the procedure that may or may not unfold. And Mr. Clerk, at any time if I say a falsehood, you jump right on me. You correct me, please. I think it's important because I think on January the 30th, when we were dealing with the recreation facility issue, I think a number of amendments were passed, and subsequently the motion as amended was turned down, and that was the end of the discussion. So I want to just clarify how I plan on proceeding here. Again, I felt that at January 30th, after that motion was defeated, that some members of council were a little surprised that we could not go on and deal with individual items. So I want to avoid that happening if it happens, and it shouldn't. Councillor Columbus has placed a notice of reconsideration, a motion from March 27th notice of motion. His motion before us in a moment is to reconsider the issue of recreation facilities. And you will see that, as I said, on page 89 and 90. This is the motion that was turned down on March the 30th by council. We will be voting very shortly on a motion of reconsideration of this motion. After the motion is read by the clerk, as it's presented on page 89 and 90, we will have, I am asking for a recorded vote for the record. There is no debate from any of us on a motion of reconsideration. If this reconsideration motion is defeated, we move on to the next council agenda item. If this reconsideration motion before us is passed, then certainly I can accept amendments to this motion of reconsideration at that time. And I will point out the procedure that, if we get to that point, that would be followed according to our procedural bylaws on amendments to motion. And most of you are familiar with it, but I just don't want something to happen here and then oh, I forgot about that. So as I said, I will talk about procedure if we get to that point. Page 89, Mr. Clerk, would you read the resolution that's before us to be reconsidered, please?
Yes, of course, Mr. Mayor. That resolution number 2 of the January 30th, 2018 council meeting be reconsidered. And then it's A, that staff report CS 1804 Recreation Facilities Council Subcommittee recommendations be received, and that council move forward with further investigation into a multi-use facility. C, that council approve recommendation number 1 of the subcommittee resolutions, that the Simcoe Senior Center be replaced. D, and that council approve recommendation number 2 of the subcommittee resolutions, that a new recreation pool be constructed of not less than 8 lanes, including a therapy pool. E, and that council approve recommendation number 7 of the subcommittee resolutions, that Simcoe be the preferred location for a multi-use facility. F, and that council approve recommendation number 8 of the subcommittee resolutions, that staff investigate land that is up to approximately 25 acres within the urban Simcoe area that is available for potential for Norfolk County to build a multi-use facility upon. G, and that council directs staff to prepare a closed session report presenting all properly zoned and serviced land parcels available for the construction of a multi-use facility within the Simcoe urban boundary with the estimated cost for council's consideration as a next step in investigating a multi-use facility, with a report to be presented to council by April 30th, 2018. H, and that the seniors utilizing the current senior center be consulted respecting the required size of their facility. I, and that council approve the recommendation number 3 of the subcommittee resolutions to rebuild the recreation center with the option for a twin pad. J, and that council approve recommendation number 4 of the subcommittee's resolutions that the recreation replacement include the inclusion of meeting rooms and administrative offices, including the Sports Hall of Fame. K, and that council approve recommendation number 5 of the subcommittee resolutions that the multipurpose facility include a multipurpose gymnasium, including an indoor track. L, and that further that council approve recommendation number 6 of the subcommittee resolutions that depending upon the location of the multi-use facility, the potential repair or replacement of Talbot Gardens be considered.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. That is the motion we are reconsidering. I have a mover, Councillor Columbus. I will need a seconder for reconsideration of this motion. Councillor Oliver, and obviously I'm not going to read it again. It's before you. I have asked for a recorded vote. Mr. Clerk, yes.
Just to ask a further reclarification of what you've instructed us.
If
That's
it's
all it is, I
procedure,
understand.
absolutely, but we're not
So if
debating.
this motion should pass, all it's going to do is allow us to begin to debate again on amendments to the original.
Yes,
We're
and
not committing to pass the original as it is there. We're just going to have further discussion if this passes.
we could,
We could have.
we
Thank you.
could,
Okay,
we
that's fine.
could approve this, council, or we certainly can amend it in any way, shape, or form. We do not have to move ahead with this, but we need to deal with this to reconsider this motion. Yes,
Yes, Mr. Mayor, procedure. So if I want my motion to come forward as printed on page 91,
I want to
92,
correct you. Your motion to amend.
Right, do it.
Thank you.
Do I vote in favor of this or against this?
Well, if you want to reconsider to get to your amendment, I think I would probably vote in favor of this.
Okay, I got to know.
And I'm not laughing at you because I know,
At the bottom, it says to come motion March 27th. So
I'm sorry?
at the bottom of page 90, it says
Yes?
to come March 27th. It's April 27th.
Oh, yeah, it was supposed to be March 27, but we didn't have a full council that night, so I will correct mine to say April 10th. Thank you. Did you have a question on procedure, Mr. Brunn? If it's on procedure, the floor is yours.
Well, I got somewhat confused when Councillor Columbus asked his question, but the motion that's up for reconsideration, are you saying it can be amended?
Absolutely.
And we don't have to go to his new motion if we want to amend that one?
If you want to amend this motion of reconsideration, that will be up to the floor to amend it. Amendment to this may end up looking something totally different than this. But we are reconsidering this motion to get it open for discussion. Where it goes from there will be up to you folks. Are we clear?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, and I know that some of you have amendments ready to go, and I would suggest strongly if you wish to pursue them, you might want to vote in favor of reconsideration. But that's up to you. I'm not telling you what to do. Any other questions on procedure? I think we're clear where we're going here. Mr. Clerk, you want to call the question for reconsideration?
Councillor Height.
No.
Councillor Geisens. No. Councillor Columbus.
Yes.
Councillor Oliver.
Yes.
Councillor Black. Yes. Councillor Brunton.
Yes.
Councillor Wells. Yes. Councillor Sonnenberg. No. Mayor Luke.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you. So, Mr. Columbus, you have brought this forward. I will give you the floor if you wish it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all,
Okay, just a moment. I need a mover and a seconder to put the reconsideration motion on the floor or not? What's your thoughts?
He has an amended motion now.
So that's okay. I don't need the original motion. The motion we just passed was to reconsider. We don't need a motion to put this motion on the floor. We can go right to his amendment?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, the January 30th motion is currently before the committee, council members, as if it was already moved and seconded right now.
Got it. So,
So,
your amendment,
can-
away you go, Councillor
Can I
Columbus.
speak to my motion then? on page 90?
Absolutely, that's
Okay.
in order.
Good, thank you. Firstly, I would like to express my concern with use of the word hub. That word seems to have antagonized a number of Norfolk residents, especially those who dwell a distance from the proposed location. Secondly, in today's Simcoe Reformer, it states that January 30th, Columbus voted against pursuing the hub concept because a community group in Delhi is exploring the idea of building a community gymnasium at Delhi District Secondary School. Columbus didn't want to promote something in Simcoe that might conflict with his constituents. That is not the reason why I voted in opposition on January 30th. I voted in opposition simply because I did not want the search for land to house a recreation facility to be limited to within the urban boundary of Simcoe, because there are properties abutting the urban boundary where people have expressed interest in selling. Also, I felt it was important for council to consider a number of additions to the motion, most of which have been mentioned at the 6 recreational facilities subcommittee meeting, which most councilors attended. Briefly, these changes and additions include a cost analysis of each individual facility component, estimate of property tax impact on the average Norfolk County homeowner over a 20-year period, that development of any one component of a multi-use facility can proceed as an individual standalone project, that a multi-use recreational facility will not negatively impact activities, programs, and opportunities in other communities of Norfolk, and basically abundantly clear that development of a multi-use recreational facility receive council approval and proceed only on condition that 2/3 of the project dollar value be financed by federal and provincial grant dollars, only leaving 1/3 to be financed by Norfolk County. And we've all heard that the proponents of this particular recreation facility, I almost said hub there, sorry, but we've heard that they're telling us that in emails and everything that 2/3 of the dollars are there from the federal and provincial government, so let's see. And we've even heard recently that as much as 73%
Yes.
is available to municipalities. So that's the reason for me putting this amended motion forward. Thank you.
And Councillor Columbus, on page 91 and 92 and 93, is that your, I know you highlighted the changes, is that your amended motion that you wish to place before us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that certainly is
As
correct.
printed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I do have a mover. I will need a seconder to put this amendment on the floor. Councillor Wells? Thank you. Columbus has moved and Wells has seconded, and I'm not going to read through 3 pages. They're there. You've had this for some time, so we will entertain discussion to the amendment, starting on page 91, to the amendment. I'll start with Oliver and then Brunton. Thank you. Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support Councillor Columbus's proposed amendment, and I do want to thank him for at least bringing it back up so that we could have the opportunity for some more discussion. I think since the 30th of January, we have gotten some additional information, and I will agree with what Councillor Columbus has said, where a number of the proposed amendment paragraphs that he's asking us to include are in fact things that were talked about at the subcommittee meetings, and he's quite correct, even to the point of individual components, if deemed necessary, being able to proceed individually, etc. So I think what he's doing is giving us an opportunity to at least have further discussion and consideration and investigation of this concept. The other thing, Mr. Mayor, that I think has happened in the last couple of months that should be important to us as council is there has been, and we've been given documentation of this just within the last few days, a pretty extensive survey of seniors, and I guess you can define seniors as 50 and over, and I think we can take some satisfaction, if you like, or comfort or reassurance that we're headed in the right direction, at least to continue studying this, from the fact that there seem to be significant, not quite overwhelming, but certainly significant support for the idea of this kind of a facility somewhere, and that people would use it if it was there. And for me, I felt that way already based on feedback we had had at the subcommittee level, but I did find it compelling and factual evidence, if you like, that we had this additional information provided to us. And I appreciate that. So I think, Mr. Mayor, what this really does is allow us to continue the process, and I think that was all the intent originally of the January 30th motion was going to do as well. And I really urge all of my colleagues to support this amendment. We're not committing ourselves to anything at this point other than to continue investigating this concept. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Brunton?
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I've read through this, and I've had considerable discussions with various groups and my fellow colleagues here on council. I have a couple of minor amendments I would like to add to Councillor Columbus's resolutions. And even though I want to recap 1 minute when this originally came forward, and I was cut off by the clerk to make a further motion at that time, which somewhat disappointed me, but and it had to do with procedure, how this thing would fall together, timing, construction, cost, etc. But I don't know where we're going with it, but I will certainly support the resolutions with a couple of minor amendments, and if I may, Your Worship, I'll read them.
Okay, and stay on your feet, if I may. I wanted to remind council, section 1716, on amending motions, amending amendments. So you will understand, Councillor Brunton, what I will allow and won't allow.
Okay.
You can amend a motion, you can amend an amended motion, but you cannot it cannot propose, it says, a direct negative to the main motion or the amended motion. So we will get a ruling from the clerk, not from me, if something you want to amend, if it's not contrary to this amendment, he will make the ruling on anything that needs to be determined. Fair enough?
Yeah, he's...
Fire away.
He's pretty much hammered that into me, Your Worship, over the last couple of weeks.
Well,
so I will just bring these out, and if I'm out of place, you can...
we'll deal with you at that time.
All right, don't hammer too hard. All right. C on page 92, and it's regarding the senior center. And all I would like to add there, with all other, it says space, regarding space requirements, and the addition would be with all other occupants of the current facility. There are many other groups in there that constantly hound me about the use of that facility.
Are you on H?
C,
C, just a second.
page 92.
I'm sorry, there's more on senior center, sorry, on the back page, I went there first. Would you explain again the council approved
Okay.
recommendation number 1?
At the end of space requirements, it should read, with all other occupants of the current facility. Understand that? There are 4 or 5 other groups.
Okay,
and-
I got it, now. We could do a friendly amendment if the mover and seconder wish. If not, you can certainly make the amendment and we'll vote on it. It's adding something to it. It's not taking away the senior center, so I think you're in order. You are a fast learner. Do you wish to comment or not? If you don't mind,
Yes,
Councillor Brunt, to see...
Mr. Mayor, I will accept that as a friendly amendment. As a matter of fact, I had a number of persons outside of the seniors who used that facility that did question that part. I didn't change the motion, though,
Okay.
in the last
And Mr.
couple.
Oliver, you okay with that?
Well,
Well, yes, you were. You didn't second this?
That's a reconsideration motion.
We only have 4 of them here, just a second. My apologies, I wrote it on my agenda resolution. Wells, are you okay with what Mr. Brunton wishes? Amen. Okay, so we'll make that a friendly amendment. Give it to me one last time, and I'll put it on the proper motion. Take that away from me, I don't want that.
Want me to read it?
There you go, thank you. Yeah, one more time, please.
Okay,
Got
at
too
the
much
end
paper.
of space requirements, it would read, with all other occupants of the current facility.
Thank you, sir.
And-
Go ahead.
Okay,
Got it?
all right. Now, I don't know if this is in order or not, but
Well, we'll find out.
on the next one right under it, I think we need to add therapy pools, do we not? Or is that out of line?
No, I think, pardon, Mr. Clerk, I better be quiet. I was going to say he's adding something. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that one was specifically removed through the amendment proposed by Councillor Columbus. It was in the previous January 30th motion, and it has been removed. So I'd look to the councillor to determine if it's directly contrary to his intent of that motion.
I felt that the word aquatic center covered that off. That's the reason why I left it wide open.
So that, whatever, I'm just throwing it in there.
I guess down the road, what is planned for the aquatic center, if there is to be one, will be back
All right.
for debate at council and consideration before it's finally passed. So
Well,
keep going, keep going.
And trying not to be hammered, I will move to the last one at the end where it says 1/3, which should now read, what, 27%, should it not? Isn't that the lowest possible
Well,
grant?
the ministry about 2 weeks ago announced new funding of 11 billion over 10 years from the feds to the provinces. The Ontario government, in the release I got, announced some money for recreational facilities across the province of Ontario to the tune of $742 million. And it said that the formula would be changed to a 1/3 Ontario grant and a 40% federal portion of the project, leaving the municipality with 27%. But I think, again, more details to follow, so if you want to leave the 1/3 by the county, you could say up to 1/3, or, I can only tell you what the province tells me.
27%.
That's, I think the gist is that we have some partners here, roughly
Okay.
1/3, 1/3, 1/3. We get more money, great.
All right, no,
Okay.
I'll leave it at that then.
Leave it at that, thank
All
you.
right.
Is that it?
Yeah, well, I would like to discuss, and maybe it's premature at this time, but the procedure later on, and when it comes back, I'll deal with that. Thank you. Not the procedure of council, I'm talking procedure of construction, if and when it goes ahead.
Well, we got lots of time to do that, especially if we can ever get a motion to at least move ahead and find out how to play the game, or if we're going to play it. But we got to get something. So if I may then, I know there's some other speakers to amendments. Thank you, Councillor Brunton. We've made the one addition through a friendly amendment to C. Okay? Is there any other discussion? Councillor Black to the amendment, when the amendment's on the floor.
Councillor Columbus's and Councillor Wells's amendment. Okay, yeah, I'm going to support it, and certainly in the spirit of compromise. And, my major goal, similar to Councillor Oliver, is get this move forward to the next step. Quite frankly, I think we're all kind of getting too involved in the detail, and really that should be Mr. Cridlin and staff's purview. Once we move it forward to them, they will investigate all the details of this, the locations, the costs, the comparisons, the fact that I'm sure we're going to need a consultant to help us out with that. So my main objective is just to try to get it to that next step. All of this information will come back to us again. We'll be debating